Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Dina. I think we'll get Michael Cohen back in the next week and a half. No, of course, out of respect for the trial process, out of respect for Justice Merchan's orders and requests, Michael Cohen will not be appearing on Political Beatdown. I think until there's at least closure in the case, which would be a verdict. Dina, I think you and I both expect that verdict to come next week by next Thursday or Friday, given some of the delays that took place. Justice Merchan explained today that the summations would take place beginning after Memorial Day, so starting Tuesday. I think Justice Merchan smartly didn't want to kind of have a big gap with Memorial Day after summation where jurors may forget what's going on. And so the summation goes right into deliberation, and they were able to use the other time, which they needed anyway, today. And we'll see if there's some other days to go over things like the charging instructions for the jury, where the jury will ultimately get the law that they need to apply to the facts. The other jury instructions were discussed. If there were disputes over which instructions should be given to the jury, remember, it's the judge's job to basically advise on what the law is. It is the jury that is the trier of fact. They take the law they're given and then they apply the facts to it. So when you have to deal with charging instructions, you go and you look at what the law is that gets handed over to the jury. And there may be disputes over what type of instructions the jury receives. For example, whether there is an instruction about something called advice of counsel, which has to be asserted before the trial begins, or at least at some point during the trial, in which case the defendant has to testify. An advice of counsel instruction is basically a criminal defendant saying, it's my lawyer's fault. They misled me. I got bad advice. But the criminal defendant has to take the stand. So Trump and his legal team were trying to be a little sneaky and say that we're not actually requesting an advice of counsel instruction. We're requesting a presence of counsel instruction. They invented their own concept and said, well, Trump didn't testify, so we didn't formally assert advice of counsel, but we still want to blame the lawyers and we want to give the jury instructions on that. And moments ago, Justice Merchan's like, presence of counsel, that's not a real thing, denied. And so it was things like that that were discussed. Whether or not, when we're dealing with falsified business records, whether it's enough for a person who's being charged with it to cause the records to be falsified versus actually them going with the magic marker or the Sharpie and quite literally falsifying the records themselves. If they cause the records to be falsified through their acts and conduct and others then do it, you can't then blame the other. So that was discussed. It is enough if Donald Trump put in motion, thereby causing business records to be falsified. So all of this stuff for MAGA blaming it on the bookkeeper, that's not what the law is. The law is if Trump caused the bookkeeper to then make the false entry, Trump is criminally responsible. So that was ruled on moments ago. And then Dina, yesterday we had Robert Costello testify. My brother Jordy, I think said it brilliantly. So Robert Costello is this MAGA lawyer, and the way the media tried to present the way they claimed Michael Cohen was going to testify, like Cohen was just going to start going all crazy and being disruptive and engage in contemptuous behavior. Of course, Cohen didn't do that. Everybody who watches Political Beatdown and Mea Culpa knows that Cohen conducts himself professionally. Everyone knows how Cohen would act, and Cohen acted professionally, made eye contact with the jury. But the way the media narrative was like, this is how Cohen's going to act, is how the witness, like really the one witness Donald Trump called, acted. Robert Costello, like grinning and making noises at Justice Merchan, staring him down, making snide remarks like, well, then you strike it. And so like Justice Merchan had to like shut down the courtroom, close it, and basically warn Robert Costello that he would be held in contempt if he continued to engage in that conduct. The cross-examination of Costello was what a cross-examination should be, and Costello basically collapsed on cross-examination, not literally, but you had jurors who were basically laughing in Costello's face, and Trump's lawyers did not want to call Costello. Apparently, Trump made them call Costello, and it was just devastating because Costello was like, I didn't care about Donald Trump. I don't care about Trump or Giuliani. I was focused on helping Michael Cohen. And then very quickly, the way a cross is supposed to happen, like boom, 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 the prosecutor, Susan Hoffinger, said, oh, really? You said that your interests were Cohen? Well, here are all of the emails basically behind the scenes where you had Costello calling Cohen an a-hole and basically telling people, hey, we really need to help Trump here, and Cohen's not playing ball, and what can we do with Cohen, and we really need to help Trump out right here, and words that effect. So it actually, and I'll throw it to you, Dina, it put the perfect ribbon on the prosecution's case that now you had this like mafia style dude lawyer masquerading as like trying to be Cohen's lawyer, weasel his way in on behalf of Trump to like cover it up, like, and not like to silence Cohen. Like, what better way for the prosecution to end the case than have Costello testify? So what a blunder by the defense. If you want to talk about drawing blood, how devastating of a witness for the defense was Costello. And that leads us to where we are today. So that's my intro. Dina, I'm so grateful for you hosting this with me while Cohen's away. Everybody loves to see it. What'd you make of today and where we're headed?
I'm so grateful to be here. I mean, this is such a historic case. I agree with you. I mean, I think that the defense should have just not put on a case. It's just don't put on a case rather than put on a witness like Robert Costello. And then in closing, you can poke holes in the case, and it is the prosecutor's burden. But at this point, when you put on Robert Costello like that, the fact that the jury had to leave twice during his testimony because of how disrespectful he was to the judge. They didn't hear the clear the courtroom line, right? They had already left, but they saw him answering even when he wasn't supposed to be answering and muttering the G's under his breath. And they knew why they were being asked to leave. It's logical that he was going to get reprimanded by the judge. First of all, the jury is very aligned with the judge. The judge is, looking out for them, right? He instructs them. They know to look out to him. And honestly, in this kind of a situation, the judge is protecting them, literally, making instructions to the media. Don't talk about them so much because, they were getting kind of outed in the beginning. The jury knows this. One of the jurors in particular during that sidebar was saying how she had been worried about her safety and she ended up staying. And the judge was like, don't worry. Like, I am going to, make sure that they don't report about you. So when you are being so respectful to the judge, it's as if you are being disrespectful to the jury. They see themselves as one unit in that respect. And again, this whole case is about, were you unlawful? Were you willing to be unlawful to win the presidency? And when you have your one witness completely flouting the law, the judge in this trial is the symbol of the law, and you are sitting there not caring about his rulings and being so disrespectful. It's like the last thing you want to do when you're trying to say that the defendant is a law-abiding citizen. And that's the true probably for any criminal defendant. You're trying to show that you're a law-abiding citizen. But in this respect, when you're dealing with this power, and the fact that the prosecution today was able to get in those emails for the second time, those emails to me were, I think, one of the most damaging parts of the case, because it shows that once he got into the presidency, he continued to abuse his power. He used the power of the White House in this mafia style setting. There's more than one way to get somebody to do what you want to do, right? You threaten violence and you threaten like with your power. And he was threatening with his power, trying to keep Michael Cohen quiet. And the prosecutors had already gotten that email in once, but they got to get it in a second time. And that is alone enough of a reason not to have had Robert Costello testify. It was really clear that they were trying to keep Michael Cohen quiet with this power of the presidency. And so you see again and again from the prosecution and the evidence that they put forward, the defense and Robert Costello and the emails that put forward, that Trump was willing to abuse his power. He was willing to flout the law to become president, and then once president, to interfere with the justice system. And the judge, when he goes to give the jury the case, like we may talk about the more the jury sections, like you said, but he's also going to tell them to use their common sense. He's going to tell them, that they're allowed to use their life experience to determine somebody's credibility, the witness's credibility. He already told them that in the beginning of the case. He also is going to tell them at the end that they can use their common sense. And if you have common sense and you see the defense act like that to the judge, and you see testimony and you see the politicians parading inside the courtroom, the common sense is that Trump did what he wanted to do, and he didn't care about the law, and neither does anybody else around him.
Think about it this way, Dina, as well. Michael Cohen, my co-host on Political Beatdown, he testified for about 21 hours. 21 hours of testimony. And I know the corporate media tried to pick apart quite literally like 30 seconds, which, by the way, where Cohen was being honest, he was corroborated by contemporaneous photos that the prosecution then had to show, these C-SPAN photos from October 24th of 2016. Cohen was honest, even where back in the day he did wrong. He told the truth. There wasn't any moment where they were like, but aha, here's what I have. Cohen was honest. He told the good, he told the bad, he told the ugly, and he submitted to 21 hours. I mean, it wasn't voluntarily, he was a subpoenaed witness, but Cohen's had to testify probably more than almost like any American in almost anything, period. And he does it, and he looks at the jury. He's honest, he's candid, and as I said, the good, the bad, the ugly. We know Cohen's having his mea culpa moment right now, which is who Cohen always was. He recognizes what he did was wrong in the past. We know that about him. That's his podcast. It's called Mea Culpa on Political Beatdown. He acknowledges in his books, he's acknowledged, this is what I did wrong in my life, and I want to make up for it. But he wasn't fighting on the cross-exam. He was just telling the truth. On the other hand, just think about when Donald Trump sued Cohen. Let's talk about that, the civil case, where Trump sues Cohen for $500 million. And Cohen's like, all right, you're suing me. I guess I'm going to have to testify. I'm ready. Well, let's take your deposition then, Donald Trump, and let's have you testify about all the things that you think I did wrong. Delay, delay, delay. Trump says he's going to testify. Delay, delay, delay. Then Donald Trump, right as he's compelled to show up for his deposition, dismisses the case, right? And what does he do here? Today, Donald Trump invoked his Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. He previously said only mobsters invoke the Fifth, right? He said only mobsters invoke the Fifth. Whereas Michael Cohen has testified more than any American, Donald Trump has invoked the Fifth Amendment more than any American. Fifth. He invoked the Fifth originally in the civil fraud trial, and then he gave this like meandering deposition. But Donald Trump is Mr. Invoke the Fifth. And he did it again. And Donald Trump, after saying, I'm going to testify, yeah, I have nothing to hide, and his lawyers saying he's got nothing to hide, he is a loser. He's a loser. He is a weak loser coward at his core. He's not a tough guy. He is a loser, and he always shows us what a loser he is over and over again. And I think today, look, the jury can't be told, Dina, in a criminal case, oh, he's invoking the Fifth, so have an adverse inference. He has a constitutional right to invoke it. But here, in the court of public opinion, we should say, Donald Trump, you are the biggest freaking crybaby loser that there is. You are a weak loser. That's who you are, Dina.
All right, that was true, bad. Oh, that was. I just have to take that in for a second. Maybe he will hear it. He can't change his mind, unfortunately. Yeah, that, and he's obsessed with the cold, right? I mean, I don't understand that, honestly. Like, I know we're far from trying to understand Donald Trump, but his obsession with the cold courtroom, I don't know. I feel like a psychologist needs to like break that down. He is willing to lie all the time. Like in his press conference yesterday, he says how he used the word we, didn't do the legislation. He basically admitted to the whole crime. That's why he doesn't take the fifth, because he did what he did. He has told us enough, in his tweets. He talked about it being a reimbursement. And in his press conference yesterday, he says, we, didn't, do this. Like, he did it. And that's, he has cheated his way through his entire life. He's so corrupt. He's done it with all of his businesses. He's doing it with his public company now. And he did it with our presidency. He did it as a candidate. He did it once he got in office. He did it once he lost the office. He's doing it again. And, Fox News, they have covered all 33 of his little press conferences before and after the hearing, where he just lies all the time about the judges and anything else, or yesterday admits the entire crime. But yes, he's not willing to go and sit in that stand because he can't. He did it, and he knows he did it. And I still think, I really wish that we had cameras or at least sound coming from that courtroom, because I really feel like people needed to hear how fair that judge was. He's a really impressive. And that's why, Trump couldn't do it, because there's no way he was going to be able to overcome the evidence in there.
Look, I wish he actually wasn't such a loser, because it's just so embarrassing for our country that the leader of one of our two major political parties is such a loser. Like, he dresses up these MAGA Republican Congress members and they show up in their red ties that don't fit them. And then they parrot what he says, how unfair it is and how depressing the courtroom is, and the ultimate bootlickers. I truly wish that they weren't such losers, and that he was like at least somewhat competent, so you could be like, well, at least they're somewhat, but like the loser quality of it, how easy it is to call out the loser conduct and to predict what he's going to do. Like, look, he ain't going to debate. We all know he's not going to debate. He's going to do the same thing he always does. Oh, we need a drug test, President Biden. We need to do a drug test. Oh, President Biden's not doing the Fox debate. It's unfair. Oh, Jake Tapper is the deep state. I'm not going to. Like, I wish, Dina, it wasn't so predictable, because then I may not be as frustrated when corporate media doesn't cover it like accurately. Like even like with that Wildwood, New Jersey event, right? There wasn't 100,000 people. There was like 5,000 to 10,000 people. And it's so easy to see it that the frustrating part is like when the Associated Press goes, oh, 80,000 and 100,000 people. And then I'm like, don't you realize that's Trump's people who are telling the MAGA mayor of Wildwood, who's under indictment, what the numbers are, to tell the press so that they could use it to spread their propaganda? I wish it wasn't so easy to see it, because I think I may be less frustrated if it was like a complex Rubik's Cube and I was like, oh, you got me good. But it's so obvious. It's so flagrant. He's posting like bring back the Reich videos. I mean, it's so absurd that it even makes it doubly, triply, infinitely worse, that it's so obvious in our face. And yet people are so easy to be manipulated by the corporate media of what is actually going on here. And you said it best, Dina, that they're doing such a disservice that when and if there is a guilty verdict, look, there ain't going to be an acquittal. Let's be clear, right? It's either going to be hung with maybe one juror holdout that's rogue that nobody saw coming, which I hope's not the case. I don't think is the case. There ain't going to be an acquittal. So if and when there's a guilty verdict, the public feels confused because they're not being educated on the transcripts and what's really happening in the courtroom, like you do, Dina, and Karen Friedman Agnifilo and Popak, and we do here on Beatdown.
Oh, absolutely. And I think part of the problem too with Trump and his circle is they do so many bad things that people move on, right? Like even just the press conference. Like I'm actually still just so bothered about the number of politicians that have showed up and disparaged our justice system. Like that to me, like if that had even happened, a few years ago, we would be, I think, more upset about it. But now it's reported like, oh, okay, somebody's showing up. I think what he's doing today to our justice system is what he did to our media. He so damaged the reputation of our media. I think it's never come back. And I'm really worried he's doing that to our justice system. And we have elected officials participating in this. And that today, the person who spoke today was talking about the ruling class, right? Like the ruling class, taking it to Donald Trump. And I'm like, you're the ruling class. I mean, I know a reporter said Donald Trump is the ruling class, but so are all those politicians. If they don't think they're there because of power and privilege, like that's the ruling class in our country. Do you think that everyday Americans can leave their jobs and go travel in front of a courtroom and have the luxury of speaking their opinion about it? No. If you, on your job employer's dime, can go and travel to a jurisdiction that has absolutely nothing to do with your job for the sole purpose of talking about something that has absolutely nothing to do with your job, you are the ruling class. And you are using that power and that privilege that those voters have given you, not to do your job, but to disparage our justice system, which doesn't belong to Trump. It doesn't belong to MAGA. It doesn't belong to those people in front of those microphones. It belongs to us. And as a lawyer, and really just as like an everyday American, that really is almost one of the most upsetting things about this trial.
I want to show that clip of the Texas Lieutenant Governor, MAGA Republican, who showed up and said that. I also want to show you Donald Trump as he was leaving the courthouse moments ago. And then I want to show you as well some other clips you and I will go over. Let's do that, but let's take just our first quick break of the show.
Have you ever wished that you had whiter and a brighter smile? Well, before you visit a dentist, you should know that their whitening treatments, they're very expensive. And you know what? It's not just the price. You also have to book the appointment, schedule time away from work or family to sit in a dentist's office chair while undergoing this procedure. It's a hassle. Fortunately, now you can try Smile Actives at home or anywhere, anytime. Smile Actives offers a safe and an affordable alternative to those expensive whitening procedures. You see, I've had past experience with these whitening agents, and I got to tell you, I hated it. It causes these zingers afterwards. It's really uncomfortable. And I'm a big coffee drinker, and so I hate to say it. Your teeth get stained. But that's why it's so important to use Smile Actives, because it brings you a bright smile, and a bright smile makes a good impression. Smile Actives makes a teeth whitening gel that can simply be added to your toothpaste every time that you brush your teeth. So there's no change in your routine, there's no extra time, and there's no messy strips, trays, or lights. Simply add Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel to your regular toothpaste. It's been formulated with polyclean technology to boost stain removal and deliver active whitening ingredients into teeth's grooves and crannies so that you get better whitening. 97% of Smile Actives users in a clinical trial reported up to 6 shades whiter on average. Listen to what I just said, up to 6 shades whiter on average, and all within 30 days. I mean, that's the kind of trial that I like. So what are you waiting for? Start getting comments on your whiter, brighter smile in just days. Visit smileactives.com/beat today to receive a special buy one, get one free offer with order delivery plus free shipping and handling. That's smileactives.com/beat. Terms and conditions apply. See site for details.
As you know, I'm a video editor, podcaster, and co-founder of the Midas Touch Network. We're all doing a lot. Living a more heart-healthy life fuels everything you do. Introducing 3-in-1 blood pressure support plus CoQ10 from Super Beats Heart Chews Advanced. Paired with a healthy lifestyle, the grapeseed extract in Super Beats is clinically shown to be nearly 2 times more effective at promoting normal blood pressure than a healthy lifestyle alone. New Super Beats Heart Chews Advanced supports healthy CoQ10 level, an important nutrient for heart health. Super Beats Heart Chews are incredibly delicious and so much better than any alternative supplements out there. I take my Super Beats Heart Chews each morning, and it's really kickstarted my morning routine. After taking my Super Beats Heart Chews, I feel like I have more energy and I'm ready to take on the day. CoQ10 generates 95% of the cellular energy your heart needs, but it can decline with age, stress, and statin use. Super Beats Heart Chews Advanced is effective and contains clinically researched ingredients from Super Beats, the #1 doctor, pharmacist, and cardiologist recommended beet brand for cardiovascular health support. Find out how you can get a free 30-day supply on bundles of new Super Beats Heart Chews Advanced and save 15% for a limited time only by going to Super Beats Radio, promo code BEAT. That's super, BEETS, radio.com, promo code BEAT, and that promo code is BEAT.
Thank you to our pro-democracy sponsors right there. You can check out them and get the discount codes in the description below. It was good to see Cohen with that ad read right there. You know, I miss Cohen because he's my friend. I want to talk to him more as well. And we decided that we would take lots of our conversations to the podcast. But don't you worry, when this trial concludes, Michael Cohen will be back and in full effect, and we will make sure that we will hold those Patreon after shows, and you'll get see Michael Cohen if you want to join patreon.com/political beatdown in anticipation of Cohen's return, when Cohen will meet with everybody. And we do those Zoom meetings. You can join at Patreon, patreon.com/political beatdown. Dina, before we took that break, you mentioned that moment where Donald Trump had the MAGA Republican Congress members and MAGA Republican politicians from DC and across the country. You know, Trump dresses them up. I'm not making this up. Trump makes them wear these like long red ties, and they all show up dressed up like they're Donald Trump. It's so weird. And so here's you see them right there. Here is the MAGA Republican Lieutenant Governor Patrick of Texas. And here's where he talks about the ruling class. This is what you referenced, Dina. Mm-hmm. We'll show you how pathetic this is. So you have him speaking first, then this MAGA Republican Sebastian Gorka starts doing what the MAGAs do, like attacks the person asking the question. What a ridiculous question that you're asking about this. How pathetic of a question. It's such a pathetic sight to see. But let me show it to you, then I'll get your reaction.
What happens to the average American? What happens to any of you? If the courts in New York come after any of you because of something you said, because you said something the ruling class didn't like. And that's what all these other countries are about. They shut down the ruling class. They want to be sure that anyone that speaks up against the ruling class disappears. They want Donald Trump to disappear. They want to send him to jail. They want to take him off the main stage because they know here's their biggest danger to taking the ruling class down. No, you know why? Donald Trump is not the ruling class.
Would a member of the ruling class be facing 730 years in prison? What a pathetic question. 730 years in prison, and he's a member of the elite? That's pathetic. You're not a journalist.
Like I said, it's funny if it's not so bad.
You know, it is a sight to behold indeed. Let's go through some of the other clips. This was moments ago as Donald Trump exited the courthouse, where he starts like reading these notes and these articles that he gets from, he has this lady who gets paid by his political action committees, and Trump political action committees had paid her over $100,000. And her job, quite literally, is she follows him around wherever he goes with a portable printer. And then she prints right-wing articles that she and Trump's campaign and lawyers think that Donald Trump will like. Then Trump takes a Sharpie and he crosses out parts of those right-wing articles that he doesn't like, and he sanitizes them. Often he then posts them on his social media platform, like edited and manipulated, even the right-wing ones, if they have any references that he doesn't like. He hasn't posted as many because of the gag order, but anyway, she hands him over the paper, and then he starts reading, and he goes, "The judge hates Donald Trump." And then let me show you this clip. This is from moments ago. Let's play it.
Loathes him. Oh, I'm so surprised. And so does Mershon, loathes me. The judge hates Donald Trump. Just take a look. Take a look at him. Take a look at where he comes from.
Just such a weird dude. Like when you watch him there, like again, this isn't even political commentary. Like he is exactly who my dad told me to just be careful if you see somebody like that at a bar or in a public space. You just avoid somebody like that, because if he wasn't the leader of the Republican Party, you know, he's the type of person that you see. And look, there are issues out there, and I'm trying to be sensitive, to it, who are like screaming on the corner of streets, and and I don't want, and I'm not trying to let Donald Trump out by saying, oh, he should be fully held accountable. But when you watch the ranting and raving, this is a non-political analysis. Like just objectively, he's like a crazy person, and he's like a baby. And like just even the descriptions of him in court, like taking his little baby naps, and then he wakes up, and then his lawyers tell him what happened, and then he crosses his arms and he's like, rah, 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 rah. It's like a baby. And no offense to babies. Like this was a moment from about a half hour ago, Dina. So this is Anna Bauer, great reporter. She was reporting what's going on. She goes, so they're arguing about whether Trump can basically get an instruction on what's essentially an advice of counsel, light defense. We've been here before. Justice Mershon has rejected this kind of approach during pretrial proceedings as it doesn't exist under the law. Justice Mershon then goes to Emil Bovee, Trump's lawyer. We've been here before. My answer hasn't changed, and I understand the argument that you're making. My ruling is the jury will not hear that instruction from the bench, and the jury will not hear that argument. It is denied. It's not going to happen. Then Trump's other lawyer, Todd Blanche, leans over, whispers something in Trump's ear. Trump leans back and then crosses his arms. And like the totality of these descriptions, like a little baby boy, and no offense to baby boys, but this is a little baby boy. Here he is, speaking of this little baby boy, he goes, the reason that he says I'm not testifying is because I'm not allowed to say what I really would like to say. And you'd be very impressed by what I want to say, but I can't say it because I'm gagged. Here, watch this. This was moments ago as well.
And you see what's happened there with the voter. Remember, I'm gagged. I'm not allowed to say what I'd like to really say because you'd be very impressed. But I'm gagged, so why would I take the chance? But we do want to defend our Constitution, so at some point maybe I will take the chance.
Little man, baby boy. No offense to that. Dina.
Honestly, it's like a comedy show. I love your impressions, Ben. And in a way, maybe that's how we should be treating Trump. Is like, yes, he's serious to our democracy, but he's also, why are we considering him to be a serious person? He's not a serious person. He's not serious about the job. He's not serious about the country. He's not serious about anything. He's the ultimate victim. Like even when he's sitting there talking about the judge, how the judge is just like obsessively hates him. The judge doesn't care about him. Like really, he's got a ton of criminal defendants that come through his courtroom all the time. And he is not made one ruling that's really unusual. And he isn't going to, because he cares more about his job and the rule of law. You're not that important to him, Trump. You're just not. But like in Trump's world, like he has to be the most important person at all times and all things. And, whether it's to do with the temperature or the judge or whatever, and that like, yeah, we have elected, or we did elect at one point, like a complete narcissist baby. And, you know how he always talks about fair, like, oh, things aren't fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. Like, to me, that sounds like a child, because if you have lived any semblance of life, I think life isn't fair. Like there's a lot of things that happen to really good people that are bad, and who still thinks that life can always be fair? Like that to me sounds like a child, to be honest, like a child who has had no experience with life. I would love it if like in the closing, just to kind of like get under Trump's skin, the prosecutor was talking about how, how David Pecker had to enter into the non-prosecution agreement and Michael Cohen went to jail. And it would only be fair, if Trump paid for his part in the proceedings. Let's be fair about this. I would love for them to use that just for my own personal thing and to see what Trump would do. Because to me, like, hey, if this thing is really fair, it's your turn, Donald.
Dina, it's so funny. My brother Brett, he's a baby. He's a ridiculous person, and I mean this in the most not like in a non-political way, and that's why we do a lot of interviews with people who are kind of traditionally conservative, mainstream conservative people, who look at this too and go, this is just not like normal behavior. I was laughing because my brother Brett just sent me this article that the New York Times wrote about us. And it was like how media outlets are covering Justice Merchan in Trump's criminal trial. And then they go like the right, then they go the left. And so this is how like the left is covering the criminal trial. The Midas touch, like the left. And I'm like, what is left about this? It's funny that and to me, that's, one of the issues that's out there is that somehow that babyish toddler-like behavior from Donald Trump is being, they use the words, oh, that's conservative, that's right wing. That's not mainstream conservative. That's not mainstream Republican thought to behave in this way and go, I'm so cold, I'm freezing. I mean, it's like 76 degrees in the courthouse, by the way. Like, there are people now who are going in there just to prove that it's not cold in the courthouse. Like Frank Runyon, like it's not cold in the courthouse. Like me saying it's weird that he keeps on falling asleep, whining like a little man baby. He is. This isn't a leftist perspective or viewpoint. Yet when the corporate media has to tell that, they have to divide you into sides. And our audience knows that these aren't like side issues. This is just objective stuff. Like look, it's not a lefty thing for me to take a look at Donald Trump saying, this is what he said when he walked in. We're going to be resting. Pretty quickly, resting, meaning not resting, sleeping, like resting the case. Here, play this clip.
Here I am. I will be doing something in the morning and then probably coming back in the afternoon, and we'll be resting pretty quickly. Resting meaning resting the case. I won't be resting. I don't rest. I'd like to rest sometimes, but I don't get to rest. But we are.
He's quite literally been sleeping 80% of this case, Dina. And it's not a lefty thing to be like, oh, that's weird. That's weird. All corporate media, all media should just be saying, that's weird. The sky is blue. The water's blue. The grass is green or whatever color. Like we should just have an objective reality that this is weird. And that to me is, why we have here progressives and liberals and mainstream conservatives and independents and everybody just like, what the world is this? What do you make of that, Dina?
It is kind of too bad that New York Times fed into that narrative because, again, I think that Donald Trump kind of really amplified it. If he didn't create that narrative, he certainly amplified it in 2016. This idea that all media has to be assigned either left or right. Before him, we didn't really have that that framework. But since him, so I think the New York Times honestly saying that kind of feeds into, again, I think the damage he did to our media in 2016 was huge. And that was one of the things he did, was label certain channels. And then now the New York Times kind of grabbing that label. To me, I think that reporter just never watched you. You know, that's what I think when I read that, because if you actually are watching the Midas Touch Network, you see how much you guys are going into the weeds of the legal details and the facts of the case. And at that point, you're just giving information. So I think that a reporter just hasn't really done their due diligence if they're just automatically going to label one thing or another. And the fact of the matter is we have a Fox that has paid almost $1 billion for their defamation, for their lies that they had around the 2016 election. So I don't think it's really fair to say, oh, this network is reporting the facts. And yes, these facts are bad to Donald Trump. Like you said, the constant sleeping in the trial. Like, yes, that's bad to Donald Trump. If you're going to report that, it doesn't make him look good, but it's a fact. And then you have the other network who's willing to, quite frankly, still report on his lies and talk about how the judge hates him. You know, I don't think the judge hates him technically. You know, he's saying things that are defamatory towards the justice, to be quite honest. He's saying that he's in the pocket of the Democrats and all that kind of stuff. And they're willing to amplify it. So to me, there's also like this unrecognition that we're not really just talking about different networks even having different political points of view. We're talking about a huge network in this country who's willing to put people on the air who are going to lie. That's not journalism. And it's a direct result, to be quite frank, of the rolling back of the regulations that happened years ago. So I kind of wish that was maybe more part of the article rather than just, you know, deciding to feed into the Trump narrative that like a network has to be, you know, liberal or conservative, or how about it just willing to be factual or not factual?
Exactly. I mean, look, the article, I mean, I'm glancing at it right now and I'll have to read the full thing. You know, it seems otherwise good, but that framework to me, the framework to me though is, you know, to your point and what I was saying before is very unique to me. I mean, like our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, was a lifelong Republican. Some of the videos here that do the best on the network, and sometimes even, you know, our more liberal and progressive supporters like, Ben, can you stop interviewing the DeSantis supporters? Stop bringing them on. And I say, look, I genuinely want to show that there could be, you know, adult conversations, even with people who I very much disagree with on politics, and we could focus on issues that unite us, like when MAGA attacks people who are in recovery from drugs and recovery from alcoholism, and they mock that. So I try to find areas where we could find commonality. Like, look, it's not okay to treat people like, to mock Hunter Biden for his drug addiction in the past while he's in recovery. If you want to talk about other things, do that, but don't mock someone who's in recovery. And I try to find these issues that bring us together. So, and I have former Arkansas Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson on the show. I've had John Bolton, on the show. And we have just difficult adult conversations all the time on it. But let me read for you from this article what it says. It goes, conservative media has been preoccupied for weeks with Justice Merchan, the New York judge presiding over the Manhattan criminal trial against former President Donald Trump. Liberal outlets have focused less on Justice Merchan, instead centering their coverage of the trial on the charges against Mr. Trump and the figures in his orbit. So when we talk about that framework right there in and of itself, right, the liberal media are focused on the charges and the crimes. The conservative media is focused on attacking Justice Merchan's personality. Maybe that's not conservative, because if you were to be conservative, you would want to conserve the judiciary. You would want to conserve the institutions. You would want to conserve the rule of law. So if you were a true conservative, you would apply the law. You would focus on the charges. You would focus on the facts. You would say everybody has their day in court, and we have to respect the verdict of the jury the same way I respect here. But we would not be saying, if you're a conservative, defund the FBI. If you were a conservative, you would not be saying defund these prosecutors. If you were a conservative, you would not be saying defund the Department of Justice and take them down, or defund the Department of Education, or defund all of these, defund the FBI. Look, I could be very critical of when FBI, when DOJ, when they overcharge. I could be very critical of the inequities of how the law is applied, how Black and brown communities are charged at rates far greater than other communities, and how that needs to be addressed systemically. We could be very critical. There's also very important functions of the FBI in counterterrorism, in dealing with insurrectionists, and dealing with domestic terrorism, right? That we need to uphold law and order. And if any types of protests go from kind of peaceful protests, which are strictly protected under our Constitution, to becoming violent in any way, law and order says there should be criminal charges, full stop. You don't go violent. That's not what the First Amendment protects. So if you are a conservative, you should be focused on the things that this is saying that the liberal media is focused on. And then we're mentioned over here where it says, if you can see it, it says from the left, Midas touch. And again, I appreciate that there's cover. I appreciate that there's coverage of what we're doing, because I'd love for the word to get out more and more to bigger audiences. But it's an important point about how I feel about bringing people together. And that's such an important part of this network. I want to bring people together under a commonality of pro-democracy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, and it is because I think, you have cared so much about this network that kind of doesn't feel great to be given this label, like as if you're not reporting on the facts, because you guys, and now I get to be a part of this, like as lawyers have really come forward and really given it straight, the law and the facts, for so many years, with the idea of giving people the information and then respecting them enough to be able to make a decision for them. And that's, to me, I think that if the day we start saying, the other side isn't smart enough, like Justice, the Judge Cannon, right, in Florida, I saw someone on social media where people were saying that she just wasn't smart, and that's why she made all these rulings. And, to me, I'm like, that's not true, right? I mean, her and I actually were trained at the same law firm, and tons of, big, Ted Boutros, a big liberal partner who's argued a ton of important case, came out of that law firm. It's not that she's not smart. It's that she's, was appointed by Trump and she's partisan. But the minute we start assuming that people that don't agree with us because they are not smart, to me, like, that's just wrong. I think it's offensive. And you're never going to be able to have a conversation with somebody when you do that. The thing is the problem with Trump and, the people who show up and start talking about ruling class, even though they have more power in this country than really like the vast majority of the rest of us, and they try to talk about the ruling class, is, they're not even willing to talk like on facts that you can have a conversation with. Like even Trump, or they, that article says how they talk about the judge, they don't point to anything really about the judge. The judge hates me. The judge hates me. That judge hates me. Well, you know what? The judge, we aren't, in, back in England where the judge has more power. Our jury system, the jury's going to make a decision in this case. And yes, the judge had some legal rulings he was going to make. He's been upheld, by the appellate court whenever that Trump tried to appeal it. He was just upheld recently in that expanded gag order. Trump had a right to question the judge's discretion and lost. And he's done that so many times. The judge is not all powerful as much as they're trying to make him all powerful, right? There was the grand jury who indicted him. There's the prosecution that even brought the case. Yes, the judge is the decider of the law. he gets questioned by his appellate court, and who's backed him up. But it'll be the jury that has a verdict. But, they don't want to talk about the fact that our justice system has a lot of inherent checks and balances, that a criminal defendant who shows up in court is not at the complete mercy of the judge. That's how Trump is acting. I'm at the complete mercy of this judge. Like, again, I'm a victim. Like, I can't be helped. But him and no other criminal defendant is ever at the complete mercy of that judge that sits in front of him. That's a complete, again, disparagement of our justice system. It's a complete misinterpretation of our justice system. How do you have a conversation at that point, right? You can't, because you're talking on two completely different set of facts. And that's the problem, is that Fox is willing to completely misinterpret or blatantly lie or give wrong facts. So you can't have that conversation because the set of facts are so completely different.
Right. I mean, you go from law, then you go to business, right? You reference Trump Media. It did its 10Q as to post with the SEC because it's a publicly traded company. 10Q is a quarterly report. So for the first 3 months of this year, it lost $327 million. Net loss of $327 million in the past 3 months. That's not like a political critique that I have on it. That's just data. Total revenue for Trump's media company, which is now 3 years old, so you'd expect it to be growing a little bit, was about $700,000 in revenue. So the net loss of $327 million on $700,000 in actual revenue. And then you have a company that's trading with a valuation of over $6 billion. And if y'all just do the basic math and you say there are 200 million shares outstanding, you want to give a valuation of Trump Media based on just say annual revenue, and you want to round up from 700,000 to 1 million, just assume it does 4 million for the year, give it a 10 times multiple. But who the heck would give it a 10 times multiple on revenue when you're losing $327 million? But then you'd have a $40 million valuation. So with 200 million outstanding shares, what would the value of one share be? Quite literally, in my opinion, if you just did the math, it would be like a penny stock. But when facts are discarded and narratives arise, you have these incongruities, right? So you go from the law, you go to business, and then you go into our politics, which I'll leave you with this finally, which is, Trump posting this like Hitler stuff. And then blaming it on a lower level staffer for posting on it. Look, Donald Trump has posted QAnon memes or amplified or uploaded QAnon memes over 1,000 times. Almost not a day goes by where Donald Trump doesn't post some pro J6 thing and saying that the storm is here, and all of these incredibly, and if anybody else did any of these things, it would be game over for their political career. Heck, there was a time in our politics, if you spelled potato wrong, if you went woohoo, that could end your career. Trump just posting death cult memes every day using language that's very similar to Hitler language, and then posting what he posted yesterday, and then it's oh, well, Trump's social media account posted it, not Trump's social media account. It's Trump posted it. Why do you create this barrier when the media reports on it? Oh, it's Trump's social media account that it's some bot, it's some AI that spits this out. Meanwhile, we know from the criminal trial that it's either Trump or Dan Scavino who posts. No one else has posting privileges at all, not lower level staffers. And then why don't we hold someone accountable for posting such heinous things? That's why we cover that here on the Midas Touch Network every day. So we go from the courtroom to business to politics, and we as Americans should just objectively look at that behavior and just be repulsed. We should be repulsed by this behavior right here. by Donald Trump and MAGA. It ain't conservative at all. It is as nihilistic and as destructive as you get. Dina, I'll give you the last word.
You know, he tells us who he is every day. He tells us who he is every day. And even with that posting of that really heinous video, we didn't hear from him saying, oh, this is awful. This was inadvertent. It was like a campaign statement. We didn't hear from him because he was certainly okay with it. We didn't hear from him because he has used those words before, using vermin and, you know, the immigrants poisoning the blood. He is okay with this. And politically, for whatever reason, he gets away with everything. In part because his supporters, I think, don't believe it. They think, oh, he's just talking, and they're willing to give him a pass. But our justice system doesn't work that way. It works in the evidence. The books, what he said in the books, what he said in his tweets, what he said in the tape, what he said to Hope Hicks, what he said to Michael Cohen. He can't walk away from that. The jury saw it. We all heard it in the transcripts, whether or not people were willing to read them and follow along. You can still access them. Trump supporters, you can still access them if you don't believe anything we say. But what he said may not matter in politics, but it will matter to that jury. And I agree with you. I think we're going to get a conviction here, if not maybe a hung trial. But if nothing else, I think he has at least had to finally had some sort of, consequence to his actions.
So we expect Michael Cohen, and here's what we did for those just joining now. Michael Cohen will join us as soon as there's closure in this criminal trial, which would be the verdict. So Cohen will be back hosting the show as, soon as the end of next week or the week after that. When Cohen comes back too, I'm sure he's got a lot to say. Make sure you subscribe to pay. Could you imagine? The Cohen return is going to be an episode that I'm just going to want to watch. I think I'm just going to start and I'm going to go, Michael, go, and that's how. And that'll be the interview. Patreon.com/political beatdown, because we're also going to have a meeting when we're able to do so with Michael Cohen and myself. The defense, for those just joining too, prosecution rested yesterday, defense rested today, jury instructions by and large are complete. Next week on Tuesday after Memorial Day, there will be summations, and then the jury will get the case likely on next Tuesday, so we could have a verdict as early as Tuesday. We'll see if there's going to be court on Wednesday or not for deliberation. I know that's being discussed. There could be a verdict on Thursday. I think there will be a verdict before the end of the day on Friday. So next week's going to be a historic week. And for those who thought that this case was going to go into June or July, this case is going to be over in May, which, I don't want to end the show on this note. It also just shows you what this corrupt right-wing Supreme Court is doing by not, and very intentionally and maliciously, by not ruling on the Washington, D.C. federal criminal case, because with a verdict in May, that would actually potentially allow a criminal trial if the Supreme Court actually did their job to take place in August or early September. But the Supreme Court with Justice Alito hanging upside down flags and showing sympathy for Stop the Steal and then blaming it on his wife shows all of you the importance of elections, because the president is the one who picks the Supreme Court justices, then confirmed by the Senate. I want to leave with this too, because I think it's important for everybody watching. I just want to say what an honor it is to do this show with Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was under direct testimony, cross-exam, redirect for a total of 21 hours or so, 21 hours. And he did it with grace and with dignity and with a mea culpa and acknowledging what he did wrong in the past. He did what witnesses are supposed to do. He went up there. He told the truth, the good, the bad, the ugly, and he told the truth. And that is what you're expected to do when you take the stand. All of the narratives that the media tried to conjure up about how Cohen was going to behave is exactly how the MAGA lawyer, Robert Costello, who Trump wanted to get called to the stand, who did get called to the stand, behaved, right? That's exactly how Costello did. He showed up wearing like a pink shirt, started like mocking the judge. The judge had to, clear the courtroom. That's what a MAGA lawyer does. And Cohen's not a MAGA lawyer anymore. Cohen's had his mea culpa. And I have not even just a soft spot in my heart, but I think that people deserve mea culpas. I really do. I think people, you can't always be judged by what you do in the past. Sometimes you can, but not all the time with some types of conduct. And I think that you could make up for it sincerely and honestly and reform yourself and become a better person and then be part of delivering the truth and fighting for what's right. And that's why I'm honored to host the show with Michael Cohen so much. And I know that's why the Beatdown Brigaders, who have got to meet Michael Cohen in a way that they've never even seen him before, when we have a long form show like this, we get to really meet someone's personality, and you learn about Cohen's love for his wife and his love of his family, how he's been married for 30 years, how he's the son of a Holocaust survivor and what that means to him, why Cohen became a lawyer, all of that, when you get to understand the person. That's what I always try to do here on the show. And finally, I want to thank you, Dina. You and I, Dina, we have to, I've said this to you, I say it live again, we have to create a Dina show. And whether it's a Dina and Ben show or Dina and someone else show, or maybe Dina, you lead the morning show after the trial's completed and we keep doing those morning shows with you leading it. I'd love to hear from all of the Brigaders and Midas Mighty what you think is the best format for that. Dina and I are still discussing that now, but we're definitely got to give Dina a show. We're just going to figure out how to do that together. So Dina, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And we appreciate everybody here as well. And we're so grateful to have you, Dina.
It has really been such a privilege to sit in for Michael Cohen's, beloved show and be able to, be here for you when he can't be here. And he did do a phenomenal job in his testimony. He did what he needed to do. I think the prosecution is probably very happy with his testimony. You can't control the outcome in these things, but he showed up and did for sure what the prosecution, I think, probably even beyond, honestly, the expectations of the prosecution. I can't see what else he could have done better in his testimony. I think his testimony, he did an excellent job. And I'm sure it is killing him not to come during this time. But that in itself is also being so responsible, because the last thing he wants to do is, have anything happen that can then be used by Trump and his team during these precious last days of the trial. And I will definitely be tuning in when he's back, because I cannot wait to hear all the behind the scenes, and hopefully it's behind the scenes in his involvement in what I think will ultimately be a conviction.
We don't do two finger salutes with no Cohen. I give the fist bump of the day to Dina for filling in. Thank you. Dina gets the fist bump of the day. And I see a lot of people in the comments who are mad at me, and they know that I just got married, and they're saying, Ben, why are you doing the show? And you should be, I see it, do better. What are you doing, Ben? Why are you doing this? You need to get out of there. I see people making baby emojis towards me. I see that. So my wife and I, we went to Palm Springs. We met a bunch of Midas Mighty people who were there as well, who were coming over. Cool. So we did a mini moon. She's with her family right now. I want her to be able to spend some time there, and I'm going to be joining her and her family there soon. So all of you saying, don't worry, that's where I'm going next, that she's with her family. We just got back and I had to let the dogs out anyway. And so that's why I'm doing this. But all of your, words of support and your well wishes were so inspiring to me. We even kept an honorary seat at the wedding for all the brigaders and the Midas Mighty. Cohen obviously wasn't able to make it. Cohen was invited, but obviously Cohen couldn't make it. But we had an honorary Beatdown Brigade and Midas Mighty seat for everybody. And so thank you all so much for all of your wishes. I mean, it means the world. And we're going to do a honeymoon. We did the mini moon. We're going to do a honeymoon over the summer. We're just planning it because obviously we're going to get a verdict soon. So let me deal with the verdict, and then we're going to do a honeymoon, and then so anyway, that's what's happening. So don't get mad at me, Midas Mighty. I'm taking your words to heart. Thank you, everybody, for
You're a
watching.
very understanding bride.
Thank you, brigaders, and shout out to the Midas Mighty. Have a good one.